We're going to go ahead and move there. Hey, everybody, welcome. I got my co-host, Paris Mansouri. We are in Anybody's Game live here on Clubhouse, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Please do ping people in the room. Just hit that plus sign at the bottom. Or if you're following online, we'd love to hear where you're listening from. Just put in the comments what city you're at. Love to hear from you as well. Paris, welcome. Thank you for welcoming me. I'm going to introduce you. Paris is the most magnificent co-host around. Couldn't do this show without her. And no, it's the truth. Paris, what are we doing here today?
Basically find out if it really is anybody's game. And by that, I mean, in this day and age, we know that there are so many social media platforms, so many available resources for people to utilize. And all we keep hearing is just be consistent, just do the work and you'll make it. And apparently that's the secret sauce, that's the tea. But we're talking on this show every single week with people who actually have done it, who are doing it, who are in the trenches, who are growing their numbers, who do create content. And we're finding out from them what it actually takes. And from their perspective, we ask, is it truly anybody's game? So that's the purpose. You can join us every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and we'll be interviewing people, whether they're big on Clubhouse, on Twitter, on Instagram, LinkedIn, find out how they're doing it and find out what it takes if you're really starting at ground zero today, because it does seem daunting and overwhelming.
It definitely does at times, and it is awesome to see people, move forward and move through that. It definitely takes a lot of work, and you can see the ones that have been able to do it. It wasn't easy for any of them, so I think it's great. Well, let's go ahead and welcome our guest for today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So she is a very well-known creator here on Clubhouse. She's known as the Clubhouse journalist. She is the host and founder of Beyond the Interview, and she's also the founder of Beyond Media. She is a journalist. She is an entrepreneur, businesswoman, multi-hyphenate. She's also the founder of Beyond the Interview, the club here on Clubhouse, over 70,000 followers. She hosts some of the biggest rooms that we've seen on this app, and honestly needs no introduction. If you've seen her avatar, you know who she is. We've got Nicole Behnam here this week. We're going to be putting her through the grueling questions and finding out how she does it. Welcome to the stage, Nicole.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. What an introduction. Makes me feel so good about myself.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us. It's been great, seeing you and watching you grow from afar. And you've done such a great job here. So just really excited to get to know you better.
Absolutely. We're going to go right in. So in a world where social media platforms are driving culture, conversation, information, oftentimes news, marketing, I want to know if you think it is possible in this day and age to actually grow. Is it really anybody's game when these platforms have been around for so long?
Yes. You mean for any creator to grow in whatever space that they're in? Yes. But I think the key is not only to know what you're doing and to know your niche. I think you need to tap into other people's audiences, which is what I learned to do. And that's how I grew. So when I started Beyond the Interview, and you can find us on Instagram, what I did was I interviewed people who were smart, but who also had a big following. And so they would post about us because they were featured in our online magazine. And so people kept seeing the name and it started growing and growing and growing. And if I would have done that without interviewing some bigger names, I don't think it would have grown as fast. And that's the truth. But it is anybody's game, but you have to know that people are going to say no to you and just keep going. Like the amount of persistence and grit that you have to have is a lot for it to be your game, if that makes sense.
It's anybody's game, but you have to know how to play the game, it sounds like.
Yeah, you have to know how to play the game. And there are a lot of rules, but you can make up your own rules, and you can, you can try things out that have never been done before. And even your own persona can be different, like, Beyond the Interview was one thing when it started, and it's turning into something completely different now. And it's going in a direction that I never saw it going in the beginning, but it makes me happier where it's going. So, but I have the following, which helps.
So that was actually my question, is that where you started and where you are now. But when you actually started, you studied journalism and PR. Your background is in media and communications. And people might be like, oh, well, she has the inside scoop on how to use these platforms. But, did you actually use, like, what were your tactics for the social platforms, obviously, other than the collaborations and profiling individuals that may have been known? Was there ever intent behind what you created or what you posted, or were you just an early adopter who figured it out as you went?
No, I wasn't an early adopter. There was so much intent. But let me get into my background so you know where I came from and then why I went into this. So I was at the Hollywood Reporter doing red carpet interviews. Like, if you go to my Instagram page, my personal page, you'll see I was doing red carpets and I was interviewing people at the Oscars and the Golden Globes and places like that. And at first it was so exciting because it was so glamorous. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't even believe I'm here. But very quickly I learned that publicists are controlling the narratives. And at those events, like if I'm at a movie premiere, I can only talk about, anything within the parameters of that movie. Or if I'm at a charity function doing an interview, I have to ask, what makes this charity stand out to you? Why are you here? Like things like that. But I could never ask, like, tell me about your divorce, or tell me about the drug problem that you overcame, or tell me about your last relationship that failed, or tell me about a difficult friendship that you had to navigate, or tell me about the most difficult conflict you've had to navigate. Things like that were so much more interesting to me than whatever I was being asked to write about. And then the feature stories that I would pitch, they would tell me, oh, well, you're not at the editor level yet, so you're going to have to wait. I was like, you know what? Screw this. I don't want to do this. Like, if it's going to be like this, I don't want to do it. So I'm like, I can just do this on my own. So I started Beyond the Interview. At the time, I had a partner. We're now, she's doing something else, but we started Beyond the Interview. And that's what I did. I went and I found people who were either experts in their fields or experts through experience. And the second one I think is very powerful, because an example I like to give is a drug addict who overcame a drug addiction, went to rehab, quit cold turkey. That person has a lot more insight and perspective than the psychologist who evaluated them, even though the psychologist is the one with field expertise. The former drug addict is the person that has, like, the visceral experience that can really help others. And that's why you see those people in programs like AA or Narcotics Anonymous, and they're sponsors of other people, and those programs work. So those people are very valuable, and I felt like they weren't being interviewed enough. So I just went really hard. I tried interviewing everybody that I could, who I thought was an interesting person, who had significant life experience, who I thought other people would find interesting. So that's how I got into that. But the other thing that I did with our Instagram account, which is what helped it get big, was I noticed that a lot of memes and tweets, the meme accounts were like the biggest accounts we had. We share that the most with our friends. So I'm like, okay, I need to go to Twitter. And then also, I really liked quotes. Like, ever since I was young, I would like write down, if I was sad and I was like 11 years old, I would like read and find quotes and put them on index cards and then tape them up in my room and like stare at them when I was sad. That's the type of kid I was. And so I was like, okay, let me do tweets and then I'll do quotes. And if you scroll down on the account, we had like custom quotes with a watermark that said Beyond the Interview. And then we had like a picture of like a celebrity or an author or a researcher or an athlete or whoever. And we would put a really powerful quote. And so it was tweet, quote, tweet, quote. It was like a whole thing. And so after that, I started noticing that Twitter is what really would pick up. So I'm like, wait, I think Instagram's algorithm picks up tweets. And I was right. I spoke to someone at Instagram who said, yeah, it does do that. And it shows more on the explore pages because that's what people are sharing, the memes and the tweets. And so then I started this thing, and this is what made us really, really big. I started this thing called Trending on Twitter. We would take 10 tweets every day that were trending on Twitter. And I would choose them, of course, but I would see what had really high numbers. And I would retweet about like 50 or 60 that were popular that day. And I thought to myself, like, okay, well, this one's controversial. This one's really funny. This one's really, so you would get a mix of everything. And if you go to the account, you'll still see that's what we do. But the comments section is what really started popping because everyone started talking about it. And then I realized Beyond isn't an online magazine anymore. That's not what's interesting about it. Like, I don't even think that I like writing long form articles, first of all, as much as I love doing interviews like this. But second of all, I like going on Twitter and curating tweets and then seeing what everybody's saying in the comments way more than I like writing. So I devoted all my energy to that. And then the account started growing. But it's so interesting the way that our culture communicates, because we don't even have the attention span to read long form that often anymore. I mean, I'd like to. I can listen to it. I'll read it when I'm just like in the zone. But most of the time, I can only digest little tweets and sound bites, and that's exactly why. We're all, even on Clubhouse, like if you notice the rooms that do the best, it's the people that can speak in sound bites. And even like people like Naval, they got famous because they were just so good at tweeting. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that I noticed.
Yeah, the short form content is definitely, I totally agree with you. I'm the same way. And I think if everybody in the audience or anybody listening thinks about their own behavior, it's what's the content that you like to consume? Is it short form? And chances are there's probably at least more of that you do consume overall. So that's super interesting. I can totally see that. And it is fun to interact with people, on Twitter and kind of have a little bit of banter. I think that's also what's made Clubhouse pretty interesting, is being able to, do that on Twitter, or sorry, on Clubhouse as well. So, I guess for where we're kind of going out with the conversation is, I'd love to just know how this all started from the beginning, right? So from like a PR standpoint and social and, you went to USC, et cetera. Tell us a little bit more about that.
You mean from USC?
Yeah, just like from how did this evolve? Like how did, you've obviously changed, kind of throughout this process. How have you evolved from, your studies, I guess, to how you're thinking about this now?
Well, I think working in PR and working in journalism both helped me, because as a journalist, I knew what people wanted to read, and obviously I knew what I was assigned, but I would see which articles would do better. And so then I started noticing patterns. And then from the PR standpoint, I would see what journalists would pick up. So I'm like, okay, this is what journalists find interesting. So I got a sense of both worlds. But social media is a completely different landscape. Like we're literally sending memes and tweets to each other all day, every day. And we're sending, like, people listen to podcasts, but what motivates them to listen is a soundbite. So someone will send a clip of a podcast to their friend, and it'll be like, a clip that's really inspirational or funny, or there's like juicy gossip or something. There's some takeaway there. And And based on that, someone decides, I need to listen to that whole podcast. What is that? Send me the episode. That's how we communicate now. So, something that I learned is that you need to be able to put out short form content that draws people in to the long form. Like, for example, some of my friends from Clubhouse who are very successful have been on your show. And I saw them post about it. And then I was like, oh, this is a cool show. I'd definitely be on this show. But if they didn't, how would I know? You know what I'm saying? Totally. So we all find out about things like that. And I think that the way that we deliver short form content is so powerful. You have to make sure it's good. You have to make sure it's engaging. You have to make sure, that 30 seconds makes people think, shit, I need to listen to the rest of this. So that's something that I learned just from being online. As a consumer of media, I consider my own patterns, my own behavior, and then, everyone else as well. But pattern recognition, I think, is the key to success.
I love that, because I think that's evident not just in me. That's it. You can really apply that to everything, right? Pattern recognition, whether that be from like building products, marketing, your personal brand, the content you create. I think that's a super good point. Paris, off to you.
I wanted to ask you exactly about that, like the short form is so important, but especially as a creator, but you're also somebody who hosts spaces and who hosts rooms. And I know on beyondtheinterview.com, if you guys haven't checked out her website, you definitely should. There's an article about racism and anti-Semitism and using social media to support a movement and things that you believe in. And I love this, what you wrote in a part of it, and I'm going to read it. It says, and if it bothers you that your peers use social media to stand up for people who deserve equality and justice and respect, if it bothers you that they speak up against anti-Semitism and racism and other prejudices, then maybe you should log off because it's going to get louder. Do you find, as somebody who does have a voice, a platform, and not only for yourself, but that you enable others as well, is that concerning for you, that those short form snippets or like that soundbite, that one takeaway, somebody might come in a room and hear something and be like, I can't believe she just said that, and they didn't get the context. As somebody who's out there a lot, how do you mitigate that? What are your concerns, like the whole cancel culture aspect of things as well? How do you mitigate that as a content creator, whether it be on a meme or a tweet or in a room?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question and a really good point, because at some point everybody's going to face it. I think when you read back to me what I wrote, I mean, I still agree with it. But then when you brought up the context thing, I was like, wow, I've noticed that too. And it's unfortunate. But the smart people and the clear thinkers who are actually trying to make the world a better place are not going to get offended right away. And I'm not interested in speaking with or engaging with anybody whose immediate reaction is I'm offended, or whose immediate reaction is outrage. Like if I enter a room and I heard something that I didn't like, I'd be like, okay, let me take a step back and see what's going on with everybody here and how this conversation is moving forward before I decide to insert myself in it and move forward. Because a lot of things that bother me too, like woke culture, and I don't want to even get into specifics, but there are some things that we're making a problem when it shouldn't be a problem. And that's another thing that I encourage people to notice, especially with their own friends, because you can get sucked into this world of, oh my God, I'm offended, and oh my God, this isn't fair, and oh my God, this world sucks, and oh my God, I hate it here, and oh my God, the government this, and oh my God, these people should be doing that. And then all of a sudden you become a victim. And I've been there too, when I had friends like that who were, everything was bad to me. And that mentality kept me from being successful and kept me from moving my life forward. And so the way I think of it is like, look, I want to build a community where we're all surrounded by problem solvers. We all want to find solutions, not, oh, we want to continue identifying problems, because I could do that all day. Like right now, I'm at my parents' house and my mom walked in and I was like, oh my God, this is so frustrating. And I'm sure you saw me, I like texted, I was like, hello, I'm on a live. But you know, I could sit here and be like, oh, I can't believe that happened during this. And I'm going to go like yell at my mom after. She didn't mean to do that. She doesn't know. Like, that's not, you know, and that's what I think people are doing is they're finding reasons to be mad because it's so energizing, because it feels so good to be right and mad about something and feel like you're fighting for something and you're standing for something. But it's actually not that exciting to stand for something unless you're looking for solutions, unless you're figuring out ways to collaborate and bring about change. So I always look for that. And I used to get offended when people would make comments. Like I would make a post on Beyond and people would make comments and get mad about certain things that I would share. Like I sometimes share Candace Owens tweets because they went viral that day. And it's not even that I agree with them. It's that half of the country agrees with her. I mean, Trump won an election. I'm not saying he's great. I'm saying half the country voted for him. Half of the look at her numbers. I mean, people are so then, okay, let's figure out what it is about this. And if you want to argue what she's saying, go for it. That's what we're here for. Like, let's have a conversation, you know? And there are people that I've seen them in comment sections have a dialogue and one person changes their mind and the interaction is so beneficial for both parties that I'm like, wow, this is progress. And there are people who can do that and there are people who cannot. And I always want to, like, even me as I grow, I want to be the type of person that's tolerant of other people's opinions. And instead of being like, no, you're wrong, I want to be curious. And that's something I learned also from Chris Voss. So, you know, I do the FBI negotiation tactics room with him and he's my mentor, but like he talks about tactical empathy all the time. And his definition of empathy, because we say in this world, oh, we need more empathy in this world. But his definition, which I believe is the correct definition, isn't like, oh, you know, you're sympathizing with people. It's, can you repeat other people's perspectives back to them, even though you don't agree? So like I've made it a practice when I'm talking to someone in business or even a personal relationship, I won't react to what they're saying before I say, I go, so you believe that X, Y, Z. And so once they know I understand them and I can repeat back to them what they believe, now they feel comfortable. Now I can bring them into my world. But until I do that, that conversation is just going to be head to head. So I had to learn that too. And if we're going to be on an internet landscape like the one that we're on, that's the only way that we're going to move forward. If you're going to be a person who's constantly outraged and offended, log off. So that's what I think.
Yeah, so many great points there. It's super interesting. And, you know, I used to say something and people would get upset about me when I would say it too. And I would say, you know, Donald Trump is one of the greatest marketers of all time and one of the greatest branders of all time. And that doesn't mean that I agree with his politics or anything, but to your point, like half the people agree with him. He says like these little phrases, these catchphrases that get people's attention, that drive, you know, go into your brain. Again, whether that's right or wrong or, you know, it's socially correct. I'm not talking about that, but I'm just strictly saying from like a grabbing attention, you know, it really works there. And so it's interesting how you're talking about that from the viral context with Candace Owens. And I totally agree with you. I think having that ability to sit there and take in the difference of opinion, again, it doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but empathizing there, that's the best way to, one, either collaborate or better know your opponent, better know your enemy, better know whatever it is, as opposed to just, you know, arguing for the sake of arguing. Because there's not really a point to argue if both of you are going to walk out with the same opinion afterwards. Like, why even have the argument to begin
exactly? And I agree with you. Donald Trump is an excellent marketer, and you can hate him and still hold that belief. So
right.
That's a really good point. And another thing I wanted to point out in terms of grabbing attention. So I've had a couple tweets go of my Twitter threads go viral on Instagram on my Beyond account. And there were tweets that I wrote, but before I wrote them, I went and looked at Candace Owens because it's not even that I agree with what she was saying. If you look at the people who have clout and then you look at a pattern for their behavior or the way that they communicate, like Donald Trump is a good example too. In this case, it was Candace Owens. I noticed that she would use questions a lot of the times. Like there was this rant that she did about George Floyd, which was very offensive to a lot of people. And I'm sure there were parts of it that I watched where I was like, that's kind of offensive. But I turned that side of my brain off and I'm like, let me watch this and see how she communicates, because everybody that sent it to me agreed with her. They're like, watch this. George Floyd is a criminal. So I'm like, what did she do? How did she communicate? What tactics did she use to get people to completely flip on George Floyd? So I broke it down and I wrote down the tactics that she used, and I used that in my Twitter thread for the point I was trying to make. Then mine went viral. So there's a formula to this. If you notice that somebody constantly is putting out good content, Naval Ravikant, excellent example. Excellent example when it comes to wealth, happiness, money, creator economy, crypto. I mean, the guy just knows how to tweet. Everything goes viral. And there are a couple other people on Twitter who are like that. Look at those people and figure out what is it in the way that they communicate that's grabbing people. And that's on the internet. But then you can also observe people in real life. Why do people love this person? Why do they gravitate towards this person? What is it about this person's energy? You watch them and you're like, oh, that's what it is. But nobody's teaching this stuff. There are some people that are teaching it. Not everybody's teaching this stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, Paris, I'll give the mic back to you here in a second. But I totally agree. I mean, everything from TikTok to like the younger, Gen Zers who are doing the dance moves on TikTok and getting following there. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can apply it to wherever. Is what are they doing that works? Okay, great. How the pattern recognition, like you mentioned, and rinse and repeat to whatever it is that you're doing, and try to, balance that out to make it work. So,
right.
I was actually going to highlight that in the fact that you've taken the time to study it and not copy it, but adjust it to what you're trying to do is incredibly important. I'm hoping that the goal of this room is actually to impart tips, tricks, and educate our audience and ourselves, our viewers, about what it is that makes one successful, but without feeling like you're an imposter, without feeling like you're copying, and with feeling like you're using your own voice to get whatever it is that you want, whether you have a brand, whether you are, I don't know, a bikini model. It really doesn't matter whether you are launching a new product, a service, if you want to be, I don't know, self-employed. There are so many different ways and there are so many different platforms, and it seems so overwhelming. And what Nicole just said is invaluable. It does take time. It's not a quick answer, but once you figure it out and apply it to yourself and to what you're trying to do is, I think, what's going to make it a game changer. Now, the next question that comes in is, so you figured out the content. You're on multiple platforms. You are, whether it's images, whether it's text, whether it's your own website or on Clubhouse. How are you managing multiple accounts, and sometimes multiple accounts on each platform? How do you do it?
I don't manage. I mean, I do, but I realize that I can't do it all myself anymore. And so I just hired help. But if you go look at the Beyond the Interview account, I didn't post for 10 days because I'm busy, doing rooms on Clubhouse and doing, interviews like this, or meeting up with this person and trying to figure out how we can work together. So,
like even before, I mean, obviously anyone who's starting out, they may be like, well, I can't hire anyone myself. Like, then how am I going to do it? You obviously did it alone for a long, long time. So I'd love to go back to when you were doing it alone. How were you doing it?
Staying up late. It was fun for me too. That's the other thing that I actually really enjoyed, going on Twitter and sourcing these tweets, or like, I would combine hobbies. Like when I got on TikTok, for example, and it's not huge, but I have, some of my videos there have gone viral. I think I have like 140,000 followers there. It's not, if I kept going at it, I would have more, but I'm on multiple platforms. But what I did there was I'm an avid reader, right? So I would take what I would read, and sometimes I would just reiterate it to the camera. Or I would literally take a book, and if you go on my TikTok, you'll see, and I would just sit like this and read it. And I would just read one excerpt, and then the video would have like 30,000 views. So it really comes down to if you're interested in what you're doing. If you don't think it's fun, you're just not going to do it. Like, to me, it was really fun. It's really fun for me to host Chris Voss's FBI negotiation tactics room. It's really fun for me to interview Naval Ravikant. It's really fun for me to collaborate with Wolf and Leah and all of these people that are my friends on Clubhouse. So when they say do what you love, obviously you're not going to love every single thing every step of the way. Like, I didn't like having to screenshot and crop and re-screenshot every single tweet when I was posting all of them on Beyond, but I enjoyed the process of like reading and seeing other people's opinions. So sorry, I just got a call and we're on Clubhouse. I don't know how much you missed, but yeah, you have to enjoy most of what you do, and then the rest of it you have to put up with. What was the original question? I just want to make sure I'm not leaving anything out.
It's basically managing multiple platforms at the same time, multiple accounts at the same time. So, but no, you answered it.
I have a good one for this too. So, like I said before, when I was looking for patterns, and I think you, Jonathan, you maybe brought up like the TikTok dancers or whatever. Every platform, different things go viral on it. Like, different content does well on different platforms. So, Twitter threads, they do well on Twitter, but they do even better on Instagram. So when you re-screenshot them and you have like 10, I try to limit it to 10 and I put it on to my Instagram, those go viral faster for whatever reason. Maybe I just don't have a big enough following, but I would notice things like that. So you have to figure out what does well where. So you can also write like a Twitter thread, but then read that thread or repurpose it and then say it on a TikTok video. So, where you're writing something in one place, you can use that same content and then read it to your audience and say it in a way that's compelling. So you can also like mix around content, or you can put the same content on different platforms in different formats. So that's the other thing I was going to say, to make your life easier.
Yeah. Gary Vaynerchuk has this really interesting deck. I don't know if you've seen it. I can't remember what it's called, but anybody listening, if you search, I think it's Gary V and then 64 pieces of content. It's like, how do you turn anything into 64 pieces of content? It's really good. Let me just reset the room real quick here, Paris, since that is Clubhouse lingo and we're there too. Everyone, we are here in Anybody's Game in the Founder Streams Club. This is a weekly show that we do, and we're joined by our amazing guest today, Nicole. We're just asking her some questions about growing her audience and content and media. We will be opening up the stage here shortly to allow folks to come on up and ask a question of Nicole. And you can also watch this on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So if you're in the audience right now, feel free to click on our bios and visit the LinkedIn the Twitter, and you'll see it, or just here on Clubhouse. So what's our next question, Paris?
I was moving on from the multi-platform to a new platform now, Green Room, which some people are calling Greenhouse. I'm hearing, I'm like, no, it's Green Room. Question for you is picking up a lot of interest. As somebody who obviously is very successful here on Clubhouse, how do you feel about it? And I'm asking it not just you personally, but a lot of people, when they get that sense of overwhelm, like, a new platform, like for me to get on, like now I have to figure out how to do TikTok, or when Clubhouse came out, it was like, now I have to figure out Clubhouse. As someone who's obviously Green Room being an audio only app as well, how are you handling it? How do you decide when to be on Clubhouse, when to be on the other app? If you're going to be on the other app, how do you make that decision for yourself? Because I'm sure a lot of people who are trying to build their audience and their following here on Clubhouse are now like, what am I supposed to do? I'd love to have your insight on that.
Okay. So I am my biggest platform is Clubhouse. And yet I'm still on Green Room because there is a fear. Is that platform going to overtake this? And it's not just Green Room. Hotline is coming out soon. I hear there's some other ones. We just don't know where things are going. So as a creator, we like to, dip our feet in everything just in case. And it's not that we don't love Clubhouse. We love Clubhouse. Like my friends and I have built an incredible network because of Clubhouse. And when I say network, I don't mean it in a tacky way. I mean, like, these people are genuinely my friends. I talk to them on the phone. We're doing cool things together. I even threw an in-person event with, everybody who I met who was able to make it. And it was one of the coolest events ever. And it was because of the connections that I made on Clubhouse. So I love Clubhouse. I just am also worried, is everybody going to go over there? Am I going to have to move over to there? Like, are all these authors and researchers going to want me to do interviews there? Let me just build my audience there in case. But I do have to say, as a creator, something that I think all founders of every app should be aware of is that if you treat your creators well, they'll stay with you. And I think, if Spotify's smart, they'll do that. Clubhouse reaches out to their creators. They have their creators program. I think if you encourage the right creators to stay on, then everybody else will follow. And I'll give you an example that's a little extreme, but when SiriusXM first came out, they signed a deal with Howard Stern. Howard Stern went on SiriusXM. They tapped into his audience. He brought everybody to SiriusXM. Then they started putting all these other shows on SiriusXM, and then people would pay for it to be installed in their cars. And so SiriusXM became a thing. And I believe he's still with them. And so if these social audio apps find the right creators to stay on their apps, or find like a couple really big ones that they treat very well and they pay well, everyone else will come there. That's what I believe, because that's the pattern that I've seen with other companies that have done well, that aren't necessarily, we've never had live social audio like this before, but we've had podcasts, and in a way radio was audio, but it wasn't social audio. So that's what I think. I think we're everywhere because we don't want to miss out.
Yeah, that user interaction that you get here in Clubhouse is pretty amazing, and the content, the quality of content I think is really good here comparatively to the other sites so far. It'll be interesting to see distributes as these other platforms get bigger, etc. So that leads me into our next question, which is, what would your advice be for someone who's just getting started, whether that is like just getting started on Clubhouse or just social audio in general, and then also leveraging their the incumbent social tools at the same time, Twitter, IGs, etc.
Okay, so figure out your main thing, what you're the most good at, and then use everything else to drive traffic to that. So for me, it's Clubhouse, and then the content that I put out on Beyond the Interview. So I've sort of like merged the two. Like every time I'm on Clubhouse, I encourage people to follow Beyond the Interview on Instagram, or on Instagram, I post about the rooms that we're doing, and I post about, like, if I have a room with Barbara Corcoran, I'll post that. Or if I have one with Chris Voss, I'll post the flyer for that. And so people start finding out about you in different ways. But if you're just starting out, like on Clubhouse, for example, I would go into the bigger rooms and see how they're operating there, and take notes on what they're doing, and see the retention too. Because sometimes, they'll get a big influencer to come in and the room will pop and then it'll go down. That's not a room that you should be paying attention to. Pay attention to the rooms with high retention, and then watch how the people communicate. Watch the pacing. Watch the way somebody moderates. Watch the way people answer in sound bites. Like Wolf, who you've interviewed on this show, is really good at answering in sound bites. And then if you're a comedian, Leah Lamar or one of the other comedians who are on the app who have a good following, look at them and see what they're doing, or whoever, whatever your thing is, find someone who you want to be like, and literally study them. And like you said, Paris, it's not that you're copying them, and you should never feel bad about that. Like I would love if somebody took notes on the way I moderate a room. I don't care. I'm not, we can all win. Let's not have a scarcity mentality about this, first of all. And the thing is, there's no such thing as originality, really, because we're, being creative is really just combining things that already exist and figuring out a way to put them out differently. You know what I mean? It's like, a bunch of chefs make, bolognese differently, but they're making the same thing, but not, it's not like a single one of them invented it and they don't point to each other and they're not like, you copied me, that's my dish. It's like, we all have our own styles, and we can pick up characteristics and traits and mannerisms and voice inflections that we learn from other people and make ourselves compelling in our own way. And that's cool. So that would be my advice.
So speaking of advice, and we're talking about people who are starting out, obviously a lot of new friends on this app, on Clubhouse as an example, are coming on Android, and they're coming in and there's probably a sense of overwhelm of, oh my God, I'm late, but your suggestion as someone who's started out on IG, on Twitter, on Clubhouse, like they say, we all started out zero. Is it harder to start, or is it harder to keep growing and to keep going, to keep coming up with new content? Sometimes we're not seeing the numbers grow. Like, as much as we're saying audience count doesn't matter, or follower count doesn't matter, at a certain level it may, especially if you're trying to get sponsored and things like that. But I'm just curious, especially to people who are at the beginning, and it may seem daunting, like to someone who wants to start an Instagram account now, and that they're in the beauty space, for example, which is so saturated, and they may feel a sense of overwhelm. As someone who's done it, is it harder to get started, or when you're in it, is it just as hard?
It's both as hard, but I mean, okay, this is the thing with me, that for me, everything was a collaboration, and I never really felt like I did anything alone. So you need to surround yourself with people that you have good chemistry with on stage, for example, or in a conversation. Like, we have a good flow here. You know what I mean? This is good. I like this conversation. This is going well. It's not the case every time. So when I came onto Clubhouse, I kept doing rooms with Leah Lamar, and then eventually Overheard LA came, and they're like, hey, we want you to do this for us. And that was our first partner on the app, where we were actually making money. So, and we didn't know that was going to happen. We were just like doing it for fun. We would get followers, and we're like, oh my God. And then when I started getting bigger, I started approaching different authors and different public figures, and I started interviewing people, literally people that I was like, if you would have talked to me a year ago, I'd be like, okay, my goal is to be interviewing Chris Voss in 5 years. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden I was able to do it within a year. And I mean, the way I met him was interesting too, but I mean, Clubhouse definitely expedited a lot of things that I wanted to do because I stuck with it, but I found people that were good collaborators. So if you have good chemistry with someone, don't even do the room alone. A conversation is much more exciting. Like, I love that, Jonathan came in with like the example with Gary Vee, and I'm sure I'm going to contact you after and be like, wait, send me that. Like, I love that. You need other people. You can't just be a one-man show all the time. I mean, you can't really ever be a one-man show. Even Howard Stern has Robin sitting next to him. Things are more exciting when other people are there. So figure out the people who really bring out that side of you. If you feel like you do a room with someone that you just met and they make you nervous and you feel like judged or they're talking over you, just be like, hey, I don't feel the chemistry. I think you're really good on your own, and just don't keep going. It has to feel good.
Yeah, I love that a lot. So anybody that knows me or listens to me knows that I reference hip hop a lot. And I think about hip hop music, and you think of any artist, even like the quote unquote best solo artists, have featured artists, on their songs, on their albums, or collab, or, even getting into, you could even make the argument that some of the getting into beefs is inflated, and just all these different things to create the collaboration that then creates like this notion of a crew that is growing and building and going together. And I really do think that you can emulate a lot of that behavior, that pattern recognition that you're talking about, and bringing it into the business world. Because, like Paris and I are doing the show, for example. And so if I grow and Paris doesn't grow, that's silly, because eventually it's not going to be interesting to Paris anymore, right? So like, I want her to do well. I want to do well. I want our guests to do well. So I totally agree with how you're thinking about that. Overall.
And I love that you brought up rap music, because I can't help but think about how Drake is big because of Lil Wayne. And then The Weeknd is big because we first heard him on, I think, Crew Love, which was, you were just talking about the crew thing. Crew Love, which is a song by Drake. We heard him on that. And then Jhené Aiko, which we heard on a Drake song as well. And then she went off and became this, big singer. And so all of these people we heard on other tracks with bigger artists, and now look at them. So that's like, hip hop is like the perfect example.
Yeah. I think hip hop is the lessons of everything, personally. But people get sick of me for saying that. But I got a lyric for everything.
My whole thing is words. So like literally, I was telling Paris earlier that when I was younger, I would literally write quotes down. My entire room when I was a child was quotes everywhere. And even now I have in my notes section, I have a list of quotes that I look at when I'm like feeling some type of way, that it's like meant to uplift me or make me, change my perspective or whatever. You see, words are the most powerful things, and we buy them all the time. When we buy songs, we're not only buying the sounds, we're buying lyrics. Like words are fortune cookies, words, books, words, like words are everywhere.
So to tie a few things here together, we were talking about like copying people, or like finding people that you like and like, or that you admire, and using some of their stuff and kind of bringing it into what you said, and then quotes, and we talked about hip hop music. So I was on your Instagram, and I love the pictures that you take that are like note cards of quotes, and you put them in nature. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
And so I was thinking, I was like, I want to do the same thing, except I want to put hip hop lyrics. Meaning I took that from you. I was like, that's awesome. I want to use this, and I want to do something similar and find like an urban place, urban areas, in the city or whatever, and put like a hip hop lyric on a note card. So kind of like, finding people you admire, and then using what you own and what you like.
Can I just add to this conversation for a second? Because you guys are talking about creation, and I just want to be relatable to anyone in the audience who has my disease, which is creating content and not posting it. So I have, like you were talking about words, I'm the same when it comes to words. I love quotes, as you saw. Just to anyone watching us on video, like Nicole just like, I have notes of quotes that I'm obsessed with, but also song lyrics. So I've created so many Instagram posts with different song lyrics. Like you don't even realize that some of like the most popular songs have the most beautiful sentences in them, or you forget. I've never posted them. So you guys like are reminding me that it's not just creating and holding on to the content, it's also sharing it as well, which is part of the process, you guys. Writing out the caption, organizing like, when are you going to put it out? How often are you going to put it out? And then the stress that it creates, because once you start putting out content, then you've got to be quote unquote consistent. So that's also part of the process as well, that I think is really, really important to remember. Nicole, that you just admitted, like earlier, if you guys missed it, Nicole was mentioning that she hadn't posted for 10 days as well. So that also does happen.
Oh, all the time.
We have one question before we go to rapid fire.
I was saying, I feel like
I
feel like we're hogging Nicole.
We are.
So if you're in the audience and you want to ask a question, whether you know her or not, please do start raising your hands, and we'll start getting you up here. And then if you are watching on the other channels, feel free to write your question in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer that as well. What's really neat, actually, was when you write a question, we can have it flash on the screen. So go ahead, Chris.
We do rapid fire? Let's do rapid fire.
Yeah.
Okay. The
Rapid
first
fire.
rapid fire, and it's rapid fire. You don't have a chance to think or anything. Rapid fire question. Your favorite social platform?
TikTok.
Really?
No. As a creator, my favorite is Clubhouse. As a consumer, I'm addicted to TikTok.
Okay. Jonathan?
So that's so funny because I think I am too. I don't produce any content on TikTok, but I definitely consume it. Sorry. What's your screen time usage? What's that notification that you get every week?
Like how many hours a day?
Or the weekly, like the weekly total that you get.
I don't know the weekly one, but it's really bad. Like
you guys saw her on video, you should have seen her face.
Oh my God. I'm embarrassed. I once had, in the early Clubhouse days, I had someone from Andreessen Horowitz ask me, hey, would you mind showing me how many hours you're using Clubhouse a day? And Andreessen Horowitz is the firm that put the money in to Clubhouse. And I showed him and he's like, that's too much. It's unhealthy. And I'm like, uh-oh, like, yeah, I'm on that app, just that app, way too much. So yeah, I need to get off my phone.
So you know when you're on TikTok and that guy goes, hold up, you've been on TikTok too long. You know what I'm talking about? No, you don't watch it.
That doesn't happen to me.
So then you're not on TikTok as long as I am.
Okay, yeah.
So
I've never had that happen, Jonathan. Next question, rapid fire. Who's an entrepreneur you admire?
Greg Fleischman, who's in the audience. And also, I actually get a lot of advice from him. An entrepreneur that I admire, obviously, Naval Ravikant. And Whitney Wolf. I think she's really exemplary. Ali Kriegsman, who's a friend of mine who just came out with a book. I think it's called like How to Build a Goddamn Empire or something. Yeah. There's so many, I mean, in different spaces. Obviously Chris Voss as an entrepreneur, but more so as a negotiator, which is like integral to being an entrepreneur. I mean, depends what industry.
Nice, love it. Yeah, lots of great folks on there. Who are your top, this kind of falls in line, who are your top 3 follows regardless of the platform?
Brene Brown. I think Gary Vee. And Naval's only on Twitter, but Naval is just so. And did I say Simon Sinek yet?
You have not.
Simon Sinek, also really good. And Jesse Itzler.
Solid choices. I love these recommendations because it's stuff that our audience can right away go and check out. Quick and easy one: Bitcoin, Doge, or Ethereum?
Ethereum.
All right, this is one of my favorite questions to ask, and that is, you can only listen to one artist for the rest of time. Who's it going to be?
Drake.
And then
but before I would have said Celine Dion, like if you asked me like 10 years ago.
I was not expecting Celine. That was a surprise. Very cool, fellow Canadian.
Yeah. Oh, are you Canadian?
I am.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, up in Canada. All right, last question. The one thing you want everyone to know about you.
What do I want everyone to know about me? That I'm a very curious and focused person, even though if you meet me in person, sometimes I seem distracted if you meet me. But like one-to-one, I'm very focused. People who know me intimately know that. But if I'm in like a big social setting, it may not come off that way. And I'm much better off one-to-one. And I love getting to know people intimately.
It's the creative mindset.
Right?
The creative mindset. Well, we do have a question from the audience, from Greg Fleischman, actually.
My favorite.
And let's make this go on the screen because that's always fun. Nicole, my question is, when you write your book, what will be its title?
I love that question, and I know it was a typo that he spelled right, R-I-G-H-T, instead of W-R-I-T-E, because he's so brilliant. It's obviously a typo. But I think, well, I know what message I want to put out. Like if I ever wrote a book, I think the message that I would want to put out and the people that I would want to speak to the most are educators and parents. And my message would probably be to let kids be themselves and be curious about the kid more than they tell them what to do. Because I grew up in an environment where I was constantly being told how to behave, how to act, what to say, what not to say, you know, what's right, what's wrong. You know, this is how people perceive you. This is how you want to do things so that they perceive you favorably. And my entire personality growing up became, okay, how do I want to impress people? And then social media, when it came out, obviously amplified that, because all we're thinking about is, what do other people think of me? How many likes do I get? And that applies to everyone now. Like, unless you're really not using social media, we all think that way. Like, I don't even believe someone for a second if they tell me that they don't give a shit how many likes they're post. It's why sometimes, Paris, we hesitate to post stuff. Oh, is this even going to do well? Or is it just in my head that this thing is good? But I think as we're raising kids, because that's when we're the most impressionable. If you're an educator or you're a parent, and if you're able to raise your kid with a sense of, if you raise your kid and you're curious about them instead of constantly giving them instructions, then that kid will be so much more confident and do everything true to themselves, as opposed to do what society tells them to do. Because when I grew up, I started meditating, and only when I meditated, like, I figured out what I really wanted. I need to actually meditate more now that I'm saying this out loud. I'm realizing, like, only I know what makes me happy. No one else can tell me that. Like, you know, everyone pulls me in all of us in a direction. Do this, do that. This is what's important. This is what's important. No, you want to do that. Everyone has advice that's like contradictory, and then we end up confused. But it's like, if we really sit with ourselves, and if we're encouraged as children to, like, try things out and not be embarrassed and not be worried about what people think, I think everyone will be better off. And I think, you know, it's better to start early. So obviously I would tell adults, hey, you need to unlearn caring what people think. I struggle with it now, even though I know it's wrong. But I think it's even easier to start with kids and you know, let them grow up not giving a shit what people think. They should care how people feel. They shouldn't care what people think. And so that would be the message. I don't know about the exact book title, but it would have that in there, if that makes sense. And thank you, Greg, for the question.
I'm literally writing that down. You should care about how people feel, not how people think.
Yeah.
Put beautifully. We are going overtime, so that's why we are hoping, Adarsh, that you will keep it quick. We told Nicole 1 hour, and we'd like to keep our word. Do you have a question for Nicole, Adarsh? Welcome to the stage.
Thank you for welcoming me on the stage. So, yeah, I was enjoying your conversation, so I don't have any questions. Please carry on.
Okay, thank you so much. That was lovely. I'm so happy that he is enjoying the conversation. But we will round it out. We had so many more questions, Nicole. Like, we could go on and on. You are full of so much more than, obviously, when you're hosting a show, you're giving the platform to everyone else to talk, and you're getting to put interjections in there. And I know that you're just such a wealth of information, and it's been such a pleasure getting to know you. What's next for you? You're hosting events in real life. So what are you up to? What's going to be next? So
I'm going to turn Beyond into a conference, among many other things. But I'm going to start, I had that one event where we had Naval and Eric Weinstein and Chris Voss, and we had Alex Benayan and Noah There was a bunch of people there, but only three that were able to speak. And I'm gonna start doing more of that. And the main mission is to build community around problem solving, and then to connect people to existing communities that, you know, solve the problems that we all face. And there's so many examples of that. But what I noticed at that event, a lot of people came up to me after, and they're like, it was half mixer and then half like fireside chat. And people were like, hey, it was really cool that like we were all just able to talk to Naval and Eric and Chris, and I was like asking them questions while we were like eating together, and like it just felt so cool. And something that I noticed, not just that night but before, is that most of us, we don't really belong to a community that makes us feel valued. I certainly didn't when I was growing up, and most people didn't. But we really will thrive if we are in communities that value us and that make us, like, we need to walk into a room, and instead of feeling judged and like we have to impress people, we have to feel like, oh, this feels so nice. I'm around people that are curious, who are asking about me, who are wondering what's going on, who, you know, haven't seen me in a few weeks, but are like, okay, what has happened since the last time I saw you? And people need to feel a sense of belonging. Otherwise, they don't feel happy. I mean, I know so many, you know, they market this whole money thing to us, and it's true. You need money. I'm all about that as well. But you also need a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging. And if you just have money and you don't feel like you have a place you can go where you feel welcome, you're still going to feel like shit. And I think most people don't have that if they're honest with themselves. They have places they're invited to where they feel like they have to be performative. They don't have places they can go and they can just be themselves, and their friends are like, hey, oh my God, what's good? Oh my God, you just went through a breakup. How are you doing? Let me recommend this book to you. Oh my God, you just had a baby. When I was you know, in the early stages of being a mother, here's what helped me. I think you should read this. I think you should try this. Why aren't we in those environments? And so that's what I want to create. And that's my whole mission. And that's why I think celebrities are great if they're insightful, but I really think it's all about the authors these days. You know, they're the people doing the research, and you know, coming up with the advice and the tactics and the things that we all need. So my brain is just there now.
That's awesome. Cole, pre-pandemic, I used to put on events monthly in different cities and conferences. So happy to just provide any tips or anything I can do to help or support. Just let me know.
I would love that. See how beautiful that is?
That's how we do it. And these aren't like long form questions. Number one, I would like to know if you have any book recommendations, as being like a voracious reader that you are.
Yeah.
Book recommendations. And the final question that we ask all our guests is, what's the question that you would like to ask our audience? Something that they could think about as they go along their day or their evening.
Okay, I have answers for both. So one is that Almanac of Naval Ravikant, and the other is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And actually, I have so many books in front of me. There's another one. It's called, there's literally a stack here, but A Guide for the Advanced Soul, which is a book that Drew Barrymore recommended in an interview, and I ordered it. And so like every time you have a problem, you just like meditate on the problem and you open the book, and it has a quote that's supposed to like help you gain some perspective into that problem you asked about. And it's just like a book of like, it just makes you think, and it makes you shift your perspective, and it gives you hope. So I recommend those. And then the other question, a question that I'd like to leave people with. Okay, this is a question that I ask. Okay, hold on one second. I have it. And this is my favorite question to ask. And anytime I'm interviewing someone, or if I'm like a guest in one of my friends' rooms and they have a celebrity, and you know how they ask the people in the room, oh, do you have the way that you brought up people to ask me a question? This is the question I ask, and it's really helpful. So it's a hypothetical scenario because, you know, people have so much good advice and so many good thoughts and so much that they want to share, so many important messages, but there's so many, right? Like I could sit here, if this conversation went on for 5 hours and you asked me 5 hours worth of questions, I could be here. But we need to figure out what's the most important message. For me, it was the thing that I just shared when Greg asked what the title of my book would be, and I went off on this tangent about what I think we need to do, and then the title will have something to do with that. But the question is this: you win an Oscar for, I don't know, let's say a documentary. You get to the stage, you thank everyone, your parents, God, the first responders, your husband, your wife, whoever. And then you have 1 minute left to speak before they start playing that Oscars music that lets you know you have to like wrap it up. Okay. The world is watching. This is also going to be recorded and put on YouTube for people to watch over and over again. What's your message? What message is so important to you that you feel like the world needs to hear it right now? And that's the best question, because when you think about that one moment where the whole world is watching, and by the way, if you go on YouTube and you type Oscar speeches, some of them just have like 15 million, 20 million views. People watch these speeches over and over again. And that means something. It means that people are trying to figure out what's the most important message. What's my takeaway? If this person won an Oscar and decided to go on that stage and this is their message, I need to pay attention to this. What is that? So when you think about that, and it doesn't even have to be an Oscar. If you're whatever you are, just think about winning an award and if you're an entrepreneur, they have these awards for entrepreneurs. They get up, at the Beverly Wilshire in Los Angeles or wherever these events are held, and they say something. What is the message? Those are filmed too. So what's or commencement speeches? If you're giving a commencement speech at your alma mater. So think about what you would say, and that's what's most important to you. The message that you want to share on a stage, that's very important to you. So that's the question.
That's an excellent question. I definitely have seen some of those commencement speeches, right, over and over and over again. So yeah, totally love it.
Cool.
So many takeaways, Nicole. Last question is, what is the best way for people to see what you're up to? You're posting, first of all, your Twitter is super active, beyond as well. How do we find out what you're up to? What rooms you're hosting next? What are some of the things that everyone should know about and expect upcoming?
Well, if you're on Clubhouse, just follow me on Clubhouse and you'll see when I schedule rooms. And you'll see when I start them if you just hit the bell. But follow me on Instagram at NICCCB. It's just NICCCB. And then from there you'll find at Beyond the Interview. So, I'm all over the place. On TikTok, I'm at Ask Nick, but mostly Instagram. Twitter, I think it's just my full name, at Nicole Behnam. And yeah, I'm just putting out different types of content in different places. I tweeted about this room. I put it on my my Instagram stories. Yeah, now we're here. So.
Yeah, so if you're new, I don't think you're new to Nicole if you're in this room, but you host so many different types of rooms. So the negotiation tactics rooms with Chris Voss, and then the Persian musicians that are coming on, and then the Persian New Year, and then was it Passover? What was it? Was it a Seder? I can't even remember.
The Seder, and then the rooms with Leah for Overheard.
Yeah, and then there was a room that I was in with you. It was an author who was talking about relationships. So just, you really cross the gamut, massive spectrum of topics, and your knowledge in them as well, because obviously you have to keep the conversation going. It's really, really brilliant. And what I love is that you're not just interjecting, you're actually adding so much richness to the conversation. And that's one thing that I definitely noticed about you. And it's always a pleasure in being in your rooms and all the takeaways and just spending the hour and 12 minutes with you. I apologize we're going over, but I promise we can go even longer. So many gems. Thank you so much, Nicole, for being here. It's been such a privilege.
Thank you so much for having me. I didn't even know Jonathan listened to rap music. I was so happy when he said that. I love talking to people. It's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah,
so thank you so much for having me.
Rap music is literally one of my qualifiers. If I know we're gonna have a relationship, like a friendship or not.
I won't even date a guy who can't relate to rap music. Where are you getting your motivation from, bro? Like when you wake up, what's pumping you up?
Yeah. Oh my God, love it. Well, we'll have to send our favorite lines back and forth.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Nicole, again, echoing Paris, thanks so much for joining us. It's been such a great time getting to know you better. And I'm just so thankful for you spending this time with us. And if you are in the audience, yes, please make sure that you're following Nicole here on Clubhouse, as well as on her socials. And definitely check out her rooms. I've been in the FBI room and I love it. I actually have definitely tried some of the tactics I've learned in there as well before. So.
Yay. Super cool. Yeah, those work.
Awesome. Well, to wrap it up here, again, everybody that's in the audience, everybody that's listening across and watching, thank you so much. Please do make sure that you're following my amazing co-host Paris on socials and here on Clubhouse. Do, of course, give me a follow as well. And if you're in the audience and you want to watch this, you can go to my Twitter, or Nicole or Paris's, and you'll see the most recent posts, or you can go to TF Labs on YouTube and you can watch this video. We'll be here again next week on Tuesday at the same exact time with, who's our guest, Paris?
Do we tease or do we let them be surprised?
Whatever, your call. Rapid question.
No.
Rapid fire.
Okay, so another big name. He is in the music space, in the NFT space. He's the one who's known for breaking news on Clubhouse. He's the one who hosted Jake Paul right after his fight. So definitely somebody who knows how to grow an audience on, I think on Instagram, he has over 2.5 million followers. On Twitter, he kills it. And then here, again, he hosts rooms and overflow rooms. So if you want to get tips and tricks from someone who really knows how to work other multiple platforms, definitely be here next Tuesday.
I know you're talking about, but I'm not going to say anything.
Awesome. Well, Paris, thank you for being such a great co-host, and Nicole, thank you again. And I guess we'll just be closing down this room. So everybody, really appreciate your time. Have a good day, and we'll see you all soon. We'll catch you on the flip side. Actually, sorry, let me plug one thing. I forgot. For those in the audience and those listening, we did just close our applications for the Founder Streams Accelerator. So we're letting the companies know. We're going to be doing our announcement show on Friday. So definitely encourage you to come and you can meet the companies that we're inviting to the cohort. And then our first session's on Monday, and that is open to the public. Anybody can listen in and learn, but we do keep a closed stage for those companies. So definitely check that out as well. Awesome. All right, everybody, have a great night. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Good night.